everybody. My name is Denny S. Bryce. I am the author of Wild Women in the Blues, but tonight I am here with an amazing panel, sun, sex, and other spicy topics. It's a romance panel of some of the, I would say, the stars of romance right now. And I'm going to introduce them quickly because we have a lot to talk about. And I am thrilled to start introductions. I'm going to start with Tessa Bailey. Tessa Bailey, Wave, show your latest book. You're going to talk about it more in a second, but Tessa Bailey is a multi-published author of romance, and she is well known. I love her books throughout the romance world and the reader world. Her latest book is called It Happened One Summer. It's the first in the series, I believe, for the Bellinger sisters. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Yay! And then I'm going to introduce Kennedy Ryan. She is, again, another multi-published author. Her latest work, Real, I think I saw it on a billboard in New York City. I don't know, that could have been the place I saw it, but she is joining us here tonight. Next is Jennifer L Armitron, multi-published author on various genres, from in YA, in adult, just a massive collection of fabulous books. Her latest title, Grace and Glory, and she's here with us tonight. In addition, we have BB EASTON. She is the author of 44 Chapters About 4 Men. Some of you may have checked it out on Netflix, also known as Sex Life. And finally, and not least, I can't remember the cliche, but it's coming to me. I'm too nervous. E.L. James is with us tonight. She is the author of a series of phenomenal books. Her latest is Freed, and we are just thrilled to have all of these fabulous authors, and we're just going to dive in. People are already from everywhere saying hello to you tonight. So I'm going to start by just asking everyone to tell me a little bit about your latest book and what's on the horizon, what's coming up next. And let's start with Tessa. Oh, surprise!
What was that noise? Yeah, my latest release is It Happened One Summer. Like Denny said, it's the first in the Bellinger sisters series. My heroine is a socialite. She is kind of spoiled. She's sort of based loosely on Alexis Rose from Schitt's Creek. And she throws a massive party. She gets in trouble with her like movie producer stepfather, and she gets banished to a small Pacific Northwest fishing town called Westport, where she meets a grumpy widower sea captain, and they clash. It's enemies to lovers, and it's a lot of fun.
Thank you. Next, Kennedy.
Oh, hi, everybody. My latest book is called Real. It is book 1 in my Hollywood Renaissance series, and the heroine, Neva, is an understudy on Broadway, and the hero is a director, Cannon, who is making a Harlem Renaissance era movie called Desi Blue, about, Desi is a composite of Sarah Vaughan, Billie Holiday, kind of like that jazz era, kind of composite of all those characters, a fictional character named Desi Blue, and he happens to be at a Broadway show when she steps in for the main star, and he cast her, relatively unknown, plucks her from obscurity and casts her in his biopic, and it's the story of how they fall in love.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, I'm going to ask BB if she wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about her memoir or whatever, and what's coming up next.
Sure. So my memoir, 44 Chapters About 4 Men, is about my husband and 3 of my ex-boyfriends. It was an actual real life, semi-successful psychological experiment that I'm a former school psychologist that I subjected my husband to, where I ended up writing journal entries, steamy journal entries about my exes, and kind of left them out for my husband to discover in the hopes of lighting a fire under him. And it had very hilarious and heartwarming results in real life. So I had to turn it into a book, thinking no one would read it and I would be perfectly safe. And it was just a fun little thing that happened. And now it is the inspiration for a Netflix show. Surprise! But I had so much fun writing it that I couldn't stop. I wanted to keep going. So my newest release is actually this guy, Suit. These 4 books, Skin, Speed, Star, and Suit, are about each of the 4 men, and 44 chapters about 4 men. So they all have been released over the last like 6 to 8 weeks, and Suit comes out Tuesday.
Oh,
Wow.
okay, around
Cool.
that. Now, Jennifer, tell us about your latest of many.
So I decided to actually talk briefly about the Crown of Gilded Bones instead of Grace and Glory, because I felt that, Grace and Glory is a young adult series. The Crown of Gilded Bones, which is from the Blood and Ash series, is a new adult/adult series. And I felt, probably a wee bit more in the theme of things than that. But the Crown of Gilded Bones came out, I believe, in April. It's the 3rd book in the Blood and Ash series. I am absolutely terrible at giving pitches for my books. I'm always like, there's people and kissing.
I have my copy. It's amazing.
Yeah.
You have to read it.
Yeah. It's basically the easiest pitch I can give you. It's an epic high fantasy, like Game of Thrones with vampires and werewolves, basically. The next book that's coming out for me is A Shadow in the Ember, which takes place in the same world, but takes place before the events in the Blood and Ash, where you get to meet some of the gods that are referenced in the main series. And that comes out in October.
Fantastic. And E.L. James, tell us about your latest and anything else you want to talk about.
My latest is Freed. It's the conclusion to 50 Shades trilogy from Christian's point of view, where we finally dig deep and find out why Christian's is exasperating as he is. And exhausting and exasperating. So that has been out since June, and I'm working on something that I sadly can't talk about at the moment. Hopefully one day I will be able to, and I've kind of got through that, so I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do next. There's a couple of things I might do, so there we go.
Well, thank you, everyone. Before we proceed with some more questions, I want to thank our booksellers. They have really supported this show. I feel like I'm on a TV show. Okay, so our booksellers are Joseph Beth, The Never Ending Bookshop, and Books One. Okay, so thank you very much. And next question, and I'm going to ask about, we've all been in this state of, at least I'm feeling it pretty much, with pandemic and all of these things. How are you staying so cheerful and lively with your writing? Or is that the impact of that pandemic? How has it been treating you, and how have you been handling it? So I'm going to start with asking Tessa. You knew what was coming.
I don't know why I was like, don't do it.
Don't do it.
The pandemic has been good for my writing, and I think I don't know if it's just because it's like the only escapism I have is to kind of spin a world in my head and go there. But, or maybe I'm just trying to get away from my family. But it's very easy to just kind of go into my office and slip into a story. And I find like a lot of my characters I'm pulling from TV shows lately, like Ted Lasso and all these,
Oh, I love that. Love Ted Lasso.
Well, it's so funny about Ted Lasso is that everybody loves Roy Kent, which I totally get, but I'm so over the moon for Jason Sudeikis' character, like Ted Lasso himself, that I wanted to write a nice guy. So I scrapped the book I was writing and I started writing a nice guy. So I just feel like because TV is the only kind of, I don't know, social interaction I have, that a lot of inspiration is coming from there lately. I'd say that TV has been kind of like my lifesaver.
Well, I'm going to follow the pattern. I'm Kennedy next. I'll switch it up, I promise. But
Well, I mean, if I'm being honest, and that's kind of my default, I don't know how else to be, honestly. It's been really hard on my writing. I haven't written anything since I finished Real, like in March. It's been really hard. I'm very open, about the fact that I'm a special needs parent, very passionate about and advocating for the autism community. And the pandemic has been hard on everybody, but for a lot of our special needs families who are not in school, who don't have our regular routines, who don't have access to therapies, and are like kind of just trapped in the house, it's been really, really hard. And that has had a definite, profound effect on my creativity. And I haven't been able to write for a long time. So if you're asking how I'm staying sane, I'm on my 3rd therapist this year. Get in therapy, people, if you need it. Finally found the right one. And, I'm just making sure that I'm taking care of myself and fighting for my well-being, my emotional and mental well-being, and, writing where I can, but just making sure that I'm creating space for my family and for me, and writing when it comes to me.
Thank you. BB?
Yeah, I had a similar experience. My children aren't special needs, but they're young. And so I was their homeschool teacher, basically. Their school shut down and was closed for almost 9 months. And I'm a former special ed teacher and a former school psychologist. So I take education very seriously. So I tiger mom that shit. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse, sorry. There's going to be more of that. I apologize in advance. But I was like at the dining room table, micromanaging everything because I don't know how else to be. And it killed me. I would get a couple hours here and there to write, but I couldn't get deep enough. I couldn't shut the world out. I couldn't focus. And I ended up just kind of writing dialogue here and there. I had a story in mind, but I couldn't do the world building for it. And after pecking away and like beating my head against a wall for a couple months, I realized, I think I might be writing a screenplay, because screenplays are basically dialogue. It's a couple lines about the setting and then it's dialogue. So I got excited about that and would stay up really late learning about how to write screenplays and watching movies and watching rom-coms and trying to figure out like, how do I do this? And because I could just write little chunks here and there of little dialogue-y scenes, I actually was able to complete something. And then I took that and turned it into a book. So that was my way of kind of making what few time and cognitive resources I had work for me, but it was a struggle. Fingers crossed my kids stay in school this year. But we're in Georgia, so I don't know if that's gonna happen.
Yeah, I'm in Georgia too, so, but I don't have any small ones, but yeah, fingers crossed. Jennifer.
It was kind of funny when you said how we've been saying like cheerful with our writing. And I was thinking, I haven't. I've just been killing all my characters at this point. So that's where I'm at with the pandemic. No, the strange thing for me is like my life itself at home hasn't changed much because of my eye disease that I have. I really wasn't able to leave the house a lot in the first place, unless somebody was here to take me somewhere. So there wasn't much of a change in that. So I feel like my routine hasn't changed, which I think has helped me stay focused, with writing. I don't have children, I do have 2 dogs, a farm of, alpacas and things, and a husband. I feel like that counts sometimes as attractive. But I think for me, because if, those who follow me on Facebook know that I get enraged quite frequently about things. Writing has been an escape. It's like I can just forget about everything that's going on and just escape into this world. And that has been a lifesaver for me, just to kind of be able to not, get, I don't want to say lost in everything that's happening, but, get so deep in it that you really can't find your way back out.
Yeah. Next.
Well, I'm like Jen. I sort of escaped into freedom. I wrote freedom during the pandemic. last year, which was fantastic because it enabled me to get out and about in Seattle rather than here at home when we were really locked down here. So it was great. And once that was finished, I've actually completed the first draft of this next project, but whether that will ever see the light of day, I don't know. And it was a very different thing. And I've never done something like this before, and I managed to escape into that. And to be honest, my husband and I don't go out much anyway. We stay at home. My kids are grown, although one of them has decided to move back here, which is him and his plants. He's got a plant obsession. His bedroom looks like Kew Gardens. I kid you not. It looks like a farmhouse at Kew Gardens. But he's moved back because I think he was finding the pandemic very difficult. He's 26, okay, so he's not young. But I just escaped, and I found I was able to write. Well, I'm actually exhausted now, and I've just had 2 very exhausting vacations as well. So I need another vacation to get over my vacations. So once I've done that, I'd like to get back and do something else.
One of the things that I've loved about, or been surprised by, frankly, about being an author are the letters that I get from readers, and just the things that they see in my story that I frankly didn't expect. Those surprises that are so pleasant, so wonderful, and so exciting. So I want to give you a couple of beats before I call a name, and tell me about that letter, that text, that, what appeared on social media that just sticks in your head and just comes to you. And you're like, yeah, that's a special one. So random name, I'm going to start with BB.
I had a feeling that was coming. Well, in general, the messages and emails that I get are extremely validating, because when I decided to publish 44 chapters about 4 men, it felt extremely just self-indulgent. It was just a story that I wrote about some things that happened to me, and that was really intended to entertain me and was all about me. And it was extremely fun. But when I published it, it was like, nobody's going to want to read those because it's just about it. I just wrote it to entertain myself. And so when people read it and say like, oh my God, that sounds like me, or that sounds like my husband, or oh, da, 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 or, this helped me with this, or they want to share their experiences, then I go like, oh, okay, cool. Like I'm actually able to connect with people by telling these stories about myself. It feels less self-indulgent, which makes me happy. But I did get one kind of recently that just kind of broke my heart, but reaffirmed why these stories are important. It's easy to, as someone who used to be a psychologist, who had a helping profession, when I quit that to do this, I have a lot of guilt about that, because I feel like I should be out there helping people. I don't help people anymore. This is all just for my own pleasure. But I have gotten messages from people who were not in great places. I got one recently for someone who was considering committing some pretty serious self-harm, and said that the night that she had made her decision, something told her to pick up my book, and she didn't know why. It had been on her Kindle for weeks, but she sat down and read 44 chapters about 4 men cover to cover, and laughed and could relate and felt seen and felt heard. And the sun came up and she was still here. So that kind of helps me understand how important what we do is to people also.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go with Kennedy.
I guess I'll focus on Real, the one that I just released, like the feedback that I've gotten from that one. Real for me, I kind of like all my books are like passion projects, because I'm always writing exactly what I want to write all the time. And I don't really care if people want to read it or not. I mean, that's really, really nice. And of course, as a businesswoman, I'm like, okay, now I wrote exactly what I wanted. How do I find people who want to read it? But Real was especially a passion project for me because it is dedicated to Black creatives whose accomplishments and contributions to culture, to music, especially here in America and beyond, have gone broadly overlooked. And so the Harlem Renaissance era movie that they're making, it's like a story within a story, is one of those people. You know, I did so much research on all of these creatives of color who have contributed massively to the cultural landscape of America and have just gone largely unacknowledged. So for me, a lot of the feedback has been just from readers who are like, I didn't know these things. It's a shame that we don't know how these people shaped our culture. And then from people who are just like, I feel seen, because that is one of the driving things for me as far as mission as an author is representation. The heroine has a chronic illness, lupus. And so a lot of people who are living with lupus have been messaging me just about the heroine's journey and seeing her. Everybody deserves a happily ever after, you know, so that is the premise I approach my writing with. And for, you know, for so long, I just didn't see people who looked like me getting those happily ever afters. And so putting them at the center and hearing from readers that it's affirming, especially with this book, has been just amazing. So
there you go. And now I'm going to go to Jennifer.
I think for me, like any letter or email I've received has been amazing. I think that's like one of the greatest things about being the author is people from different countries you never would have had a chance to interact with ever, unless it was for your writing. I think that's amazing. You know, like BB, I come from a psychology background. That's what I originally had, you know, went to school for and was, you know, going to spend my life doing. So I've always, you know, when I think about like when I was a teen and I was a young adult in my 20s, I can't count how many times, you know, books helped provide me with like a lifeline, like when I was drowning, and they were able to keep me afloat until I was mentally or emotionally capable of handling whatever issue that was going on underneath the surface. And when you receive letters, emails from people who say like, you know, this book helped me through something. I mean, I think that is like, you know, it's like you can't even explain. I mean, and I'm a writer and I don't have words to explain that, but I feel like it's because it's like, you know, I tell authors all the time is you're going to save someone's life. You're probably never going to know it, but you're going to do it. And that, I think there's really, like, you can't describe how that feels, like to know that and it can be the silliest book that you've written, right? That's like, you know, you're writing about aliens or gargoyles or demons or whatever. But that was it. And so I think anything like that always, you know, just reaffirms what you're doing when you're having a crappy day or you don't believe in yourself, is remembering how many lives you're actually touching.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Tessa.
Don't apologize. I think the best letter I ever got was after I'd written a book called Worked Up, which is a long time ago, probably like maybe 4 years ago. The main character, the man, he's a mechanic from New Jersey, and he's like got a beer belly, and he's got a lot of extra, like, you know, like he's not your typical romance hero. He's got some girth to him, and his name is Duke. And this woman emailed me and said that she had lost her husband and that she picked up my book, and this character was built like her husband, and it felt like a visit with him. And I think that's like the letter that sticks with me the most, because it felt like like you said, it could be the silliest book you've written. And that was kind of was a silly book, you know. It's like this guy who just wants to watch Sports Center and everybody to leave him alone. But she felt like that was her husband, and she felt like she'd had like a really lengthy visit with him. And it was like a really sweet email from someone who you could tell just probably never wrote to an author before. Like it was just kind of, you know, unusual for her. So yeah, that's probably my favorite letter I would say hands down. But I love them all.
Okay. Okay. Next, EL.
Oh, I've experienced all of these things. I'm, incredibly privileged in that way. You touch people in ways you can't even begin to imagine. I remember one particular email. This woman said, I picked up your book not expecting anything, and she said that she found herself in it. She'd overcome some horrendous childhood abuse, what have you, and she felt that she was able to relate hugely to Christian in that. And I've had emails from old men saying, thank you very much for reminding me what it means to fall in love again. This guy was 71 and he got in touch with me. And from a Marine, a soldier out in Afghanistan, and it's just bizarre things like that. I remember one couple who had adopted a child who couldn't bear to be touched as well, and they started pursuing the therapy that's within the book, which just blew my mind. So yes, there's I get these letters and they just reduce you to tears. So you don't expect to touch people in that way, and as you said, it's very validating when they do.
I had just a quick story from my letters. Well, several, which surprised me, were mothers and daughters who read the letters and read the book, and that had more to do with the fact that it was like 1925, so it was like grandmothers and remembering the women in their family. So that was very touching. Now I'm going to ask this question. Carly Morton asked this question, and it's a good one. How do you determine how spicy to make your books? Yes, spice is part of our conversation. I mean, it's in the title, so we have to definitely touch upon the spice. I'm giving you time to think before I do the thing and just call out the names, because it's just the layers of story and how important the spiciness is to romance, erotic romance, hot heat levels, and all that good stuff. So I'm going to start with Kennedy.
Of course you are. This is a great question to start with. I don't. When I'm writing, I don't think, okay, how spicy am I going to make this book? I think about this couple's journey. One thing for me that's really important is I see a lot of readers who say, the sex is repetitive, the sex scenes are all the same. I find myself skimming sex scenes. Like I see a lot of readers say that. And when I write a sex scene, I always wanted to push the story forward and to push the couple closer. I really focus a lot on the actual intimacy. I mean, there is like, but it's like, also, there's, parts, there are parts. But just focusing on like the emotional intimacy of it too. And my goal is like, when I read the end of that sex scene, I want it to be that if a reader skimmed it, they would have missed something about the development of that relationship. They would have missed something key about the story. And as they start, I want them to sense, oh, this is big. Like, this is important. If I skim this, I'm going to miss something. So I want the sex and the spice to be crucial. I want it to be huge for the couple, not every time, but I mean, that's something that I kind of take into when I write a sex scene. So, and then and at the end I'll say, do I need another, maybe a little water, maybe add one more, a bang in the closet, you never know, but
that's gonna work. What's gonna work? Okay. Next I'm gonna ask Jennifer.
Thanks, Kennedy, for making my mountain of pillow laptops collapse. The showing versus telling example of this. I think for me it's the same. The story determines like what the spice is going to be. I really don't think about it in that sense. I mean, obviously outside of what genre you're writing on. If you're writing young adult, of course, you do have to take that into consideration. I don't skip the sex in those books. That's just because one of my biggest pet peeves you always hear me complain about is why we think violence in young adult books is so okay, but God forbid if there's sex in a book, then it's like gas. So I've always had kind of a problem with that, but I don't really focus on it because one thing I've noticed from readers is like what one person finds spicy, another person it's boring too. It never, I never get more like amused or more just fascinated when someone posts like, okay, so what's the flame level of this book? And they do like 1 to 5, and you literally will see 1 to 5 from listed from many different people. And you're thinking, I read that book, and you're like, that's a 10. Like, you know, there was some stuff going on in there. And so I try not really to think about it because I feel like if you do, you kind of start to lose sight of the scene and the purpose of it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Have I called on Tessa yet?
I'm kind of the same. Like, I don't really go into it knowing like when the intimate scenes are going to take place. But I do know that there needs to be some sort of intimacy on the page just for me to feel fulfilled as a writer. Like, it's just what I like to read, and it's what I enjoy writing. But it's really just largely depends on the characters, you know. I actually emailed one of my editors today, and I said, I think I'm becoming one of those people who write slow burns. Like, what's happening to me? Because a lot of time, like recently, I really am enjoying that build up and that emotional like connection being established before they go to bed together. It's like, gross. What's wrong with me? But it really just depends. Like the book that's coming out in March, Hook, Line, and Sinker, like the hero's past is very like wrapped up in his sex life and like how he's been perceived, and like a lot about toxic masculinity and pressure on men to be like pursuing women all the time. And it just wasn't right for him to be intimate with the heroine until he figured that out for himself. So sometimes it's like chapter 3, and sometimes it's chapter 13, and sometimes it's chapter 30. It really just depends on the characters, but it's always hot when it happens. As hot as I can make it, I swing for the fences.
I'm going to switch again. EL.
Oh, I think I completely agree. I think it depends on the story, and it depends on your characters. And you know, in 50 there was, yes, there was a lot of sex scenes in that, but that's the only way that Christian knew how to be intimate. And then I've written another book, which is actually YA, though there's no sex. I don't think I'll ever publish that. So you know, it's just one of those things. It's determined by the story. I think in 50, sex became a sort of character in itself, and how that progresses through the books. Yeah. We see that, and we understand his development as a character, and hers as well, as she gets more and more into it as you do. So yes, I think it's just fun to do. Let's face it.
Absolutely. BB.
Mine, I was sitting here thinking, I have realized it hinges on the male, the hero, because all of my books, yes, most of my books are either I am the heroine because they're like fictionalized nonfiction, or my one fiction, my dystopian trilogy, my heroine is basically like me having a really extended bad day. Like it's the end of it's apocalypse BB. So
I like that.
So my heroine is pretty much down. Like she's pretty much down in all my books. But the male character and what his hangups are, what his communication style is, what his level of childhood trauma was, how, like, does he want to, like Erica was saying, is that how he knows how to communicate? Or is this something that is aversive to him and you have to get him there? So yeah, it's my hero that kind of steers that ship. Because BB's right.
Right, right. Here's another question, and I like this question a lot. And I'm sure all of you have had this question asked. What is your favorite trope? Do you have a favorite trope? Are tropes as important to your preparation for developing story? Some people, point a lot of attention to, oh, you have to have this trope and you have to have that trope. How do you feel about them? Choose any of those questions to answer. But I'm just curious about it because I think that all stories have some sort of trope because that's a connection point. And even if it's not articulated as a romance trope, there's something in there that bring people to the book with a certain expectation. So I think this time I'll start with Jennifer.
Well, yeah, I agree. All stories have a trope, whether it's romance, mystery, thriller. There's a trope. There's a common theme that is in that book. I don't know if I consciously think about the trope when I'm writing. Like if I'm going to write a billionaire mystery baby trope. Like I don't start off like that. Because I think if I did, then what's going to happen? I'm going to get too caught up in, well, it has to have this, this, and this. And I sometimes, some people like to do research. I'm the opposite. The less I know, the better, because I get then too caught up on what's already out there. And also like, am I wrong? Am I whatever? My favorite trope will always be enemies to lovers. I just love that. I don't even have a good reason for it other than I just do. I like the banter. You know what I mean? Like I like that where you're watching that movie or reading that book and you're like that meme of the person trying to push the two heads together. Yes. I like having that feeling like just kiss and make out already.
Absolutely. How about Kennedy?
I definitely don't approach writing like from tropes. I write the whole story and then I'm like, okay, dang it. Now I have to figure out what these tropes are because people like to know that, I get it. Like it's predictive. It gives people a sense of what they're getting into. So I'm usually like, okay, oh, there's a single dad. Okay. Oh my gosh, he's single. He's a dad. This is a single dad romance, so that's usually how that goes. For me, I am definitely not a trope reader. It's like I'm an author reader. Like Laura Kinsale could write a pregnant billionaire, set in Regency England, who's like going to the Amazon jungle. Like I don't care what Laura Kinsale writes. I'm going to read it. She can make up tropes. I'm going to read it. So I'm more of like, who wrote it? Because there's certain voices that are compelling to me. Yeah. And so those authors could write anything and I'm going to give it a try. So
Kennedy, I'm a huge Laura Kinsale fan as well. I love her books.
Do not get me started.
Love her.
Okay, I'm sorry. We just have to take a second for this. Is Flowers from the Storm your favorite? Like, which is your
no.
Shadowheart? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, not Shadowheart. No. Christ, I can't remember. I'm gonna have to look it up. It's not that one. It's not that one. Okay. And it's my favorite.
I do that all the time. I squeal when anybody loves Laura Kinsale because she's so undercut.
She's so bloody brilliant. She is.
Oh
she's bloody brilliant. Yes. I'm actually gonna have to look this up now. Sorry.
Okay, yeah,
just don't mind me.
There are 2 Laura Kinsale books that I literally reread every year. Flowers from the Storm is one of them. But anyway, yeah. Laura Kinsale, people.
Laura Kinsale.
Okay, we'll get to some other Rex a little bit in a moment, but now I'm
Shadow in the Star. Sorry.
Okay. Oh yes.
Shadows in the Storm. Okay.
Yeah, Shadow in the Star. Sorry.
Yep. Okay.
All righty. Now I got so excited here. We were talking about tropes. Who have I not asked? I don't think we've only had two folks, Tessa, because you're
BB
here.
and me, yeah, I think, and
It's
yeah.
BB and EL. Okay, BB, you go.
I just have to echo what Kennedy said. Like I'm the same way where I just write solely to please myself. And then I look at the thing and I have to go like, crap, what are you? I have to market you. My books are like not even in a genre because it's like, well, they're fiction and nonfiction. Publishers love that. So getting it down to tropes is like, oh my God, it's like pulling teeth.
Yeah.
But I know that they are important. I know it's so hard to whittle down when you're looking for a book to read that, you know, I don't have anything again. I'm really in awe of people who can pick a trope and write to that. But I do know that they are important and they help inform the reader. Like there's a feeling, there's a vibe I'm looking for. Is that your thing? So I try real hard to try to isolate that, just like Kennedy said, but it's tough. But my favorite to read is anything with an anti-hero. I am married to an accountant who's the nicest person in the world, and that's delightful in my waking life. But in my fantasy life, I need somebody with some tattoos or some like big bat wings or something, some fangs. I don't give me.
Okay, EL.
I'm such a pantster. I have no idea what's going to happen when I start writing. No idea where I'm going, what I'm doing. So I think that the idea of a trope only comes at the end when you go, oh, this is about that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be how I view it, and how I view that. But my favorites, I have so many. I mean, I love the enemies to lovers. I love that. And bad boys. I love me a bad boy. So yeah. I'll leave it there.
Okay. I have a question here that I like from Courtney Chopin, well, I'm mispronouncing your last name, but the question is, what is your favorite scene or part of any of your books that you have ever written? What pops to mind? What was that scene you wrote and you're like, oh yeah, there it is. What do you think? I'm going to give the ladies a moment here. I'll talk about absolutely nothing for a second. But yeah, there's always something, especially because all of you all are multi-published. You've written more than one book. See, I've written I've written two, but the public has only seen one. But sometimes you just get in that moment. Okay, BB raised her hand.
I got one. I just remember.
Okay, go.
It was when I was writing 44 chapters about poor men, which is my first book. And I did not really realize it was turning into a book until I was about halfway done with it, because it started off as just diary entries. And I had this scene where, so I discovered that my husband was reading my diary and it was starting to impact his behavior for the better. So my evil psychologist friend, Dr. Sarah Snow, was like, you need to write some bullshit. You need to figure out what you want that man to do and then just make up something about your ex doing it just to see what you can get out of him. So it was my first like super fictionalized journal entry. And it went like over the top. There was this swimming pool sex scene. There were all these Christmas lights everywhere. There was a police chase. Like it was just bonkers. And after writing that scene, I had such a rush that I was like, that was the moment that I thought, I want to keep writing these books forever. I want to do this. This was so fun. I want to make stuff. I just want to like use my imagination. And that scene was one of the few scenes from 44 chapters about four men that ended up in the show Sex Life. Only it was her husband, but they had a whole like police chase. There was this pool scene and Christmas lights, and it was all romantic. And then it turned into a topless car chase. And my in-laws actually watched that show and were like, so this was all like fictionalized, right? And I was like, oh yeah, all of it. And they were like, I mean, because we saw that part about like the car chase, and I was like, no, that wasn't in the book at all. And it definitely wasn't with your son.
Okay, I'm going to ask Tessa.
Yeah, I feel like I can't follow the car chase story, but and it happened one summer. I can't think back past that. That was 2 books ago. So that's as far as back as I can like pull. But there's a scene where the hero like takes the hero, and Brandon takes Piper out onto his boat. And like, he's like, okay, let's talk through all of our issues one by one. And it was like such an unusual thing for me to write in a romance novel where everything, like not everything is a misunderstanding, but so often like it's the lack of communication that is the issue between the characters. And when that happened and I was like, hold on. If they actually communicate all of their problems, is this book over? And like, and it really made me stop and think like, I need, you know, what I need to do to bolster this plot? What do I need to do to make this story stronger? And now I'm like addicted to like writing really strong communication between the hero and heroine and everything I write, because it's so refreshing to have the hero be like, let's go, let's talk it out. Let's talk about my ex-wife. Let's talk about like what you're scared about my job, and just kind of like lay it all out on the table, and then have them continue to still have a problem after that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like really addicting. So now I guess communication is my new kink. I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Talk it out.
Talk it out. Talk it out.
Okay, Kennedy.
I have no idea. So I kind of narrowed it down to like maybe one of my favorite kisses, you know, because it's hard, as I'm sure everybody knows. So one of my favorite kisses in any of the books I've written is I have this duet. It's the All the King's Men duet. And their meet cute is, as in most romance novels, at a pipeline protest. So, you know, as one does. And that's when they first meet, and it's like years go by before they meet again. And it's they meet in Amsterdam, and he's getting his doctorate, and she's there like at the end of college, and it's just this kind of like special night where they're, you know, walking down cobblestone streets, and he pulls her into an alley, and they make out against the wall, and it's just the, you know, the description of the night. And that's one of my favorite kisses, because this book goes all over like to Antarctica and South America, and it's like this kind of saga book, but it's two books, it's a duet, but that first kiss is just really intimate and cool in Amsterdam. I love that whole period when they're in Amsterdam. So
Okay, EL.
But I've got so many, but I'm just remembering I did the thing with a spreader bar. And that was fun. And there was a bit before that, but I'll just tell you a funny story. So we were, as you know, movies, and David, who's our head prop master, came to me and said, you know, these things don't exist. I said, yes, I know. He said, but I made one. He showed me how it worked. He was so happy with that. It was like, oh yeah, I think that's gonna work. So that was a fun thing. So I just thought
It was so dramatic.
it was
that noise.
so dramatic.
I didn't know this didn't exist.
Wait, do they exist
didn't
now?
exist. I mean, they probably exist now, but they didn't.
Oh.
at the
She
time.
invented, yes.
Oh, you
From her
invented the
brain.
spreader bar?
The extendable.
It's what
Now I
I'm-
have one in my closet.
The extendable one, not
Do you
the.
hold the patent on it? Erica?
No, nothing as clever as that, sadly. So, and actually, I didn't make it. David did. So there we go. But that was an interesting.
Thank you, David.
Yes.
Lots of interesting conversations while doing that.
Yes. And Jennifer.
I think it's hard to pick a favorite scene. I think generally for me, it's like the first kiss, or depending on what type of book I'm writing, the first kill the character makes.
Mhm.
Don't question that too deeply. But yeah, so I think that is, there is a scene in a book that's coming up, not the next one, but the next one, so I can't talk about it yet. That is one of my favorite scenes because it's just so badass. And sometimes, like I'm the type of writer who it plays like a movie or a show in my head as I'm writing it. And if I can't see it as I'm writing it, then I just shut down. Like I can tell that I need to take a break, or, you know, something's wrong with the scene, but I have to be able to see it playing out. And it's just one of those just badass scenes. I will say probably one of my favorite things to do is I have a reader group, and sometimes like they'll just be kind of like these inside jokes in the reader group, and I'll try to work them into the book. Sometimes I won't say anything, but other times I'm like, oh, I was able like one of the things is casserole, is to play off that one character's name, because somebody had said he's a whole casserole. And so I was able to work it into the latest book, like this whole discussion about casserole, which people who are in this group got it, but everybody else was like, why is there an entire page dedicated to a meat casserole? Think about it.
Here's a question I had, and I think we talked about it briefly when we were talking a little while back, but highlights. When you think all of you all are have multi-published authors, you're successful, and so there have been things that have happened, I'm sure, that you'd say, yeah, that was a good one. That was a good time in the author world. And I was very excited about that moment. Do you have, actually, Deborah Harris, what was the highlight or top 3 highlights? You don't have to do 3, but maybe just one of your career so far, because everyone has much more career ahead. So I'm gonna start with eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I'm gonna start with EL.
Oh gosh, the last 10 years have been extraordinary. So to pick one moment would be, I think I was at the premiere of the movie for 50 Shades of Grey in London. And my son, I'm going to cry just thinking about this. My son, he must have been 17. He came up to me in the middle of the after party and he said, "Look at all these people, Mum. They're here because of you. I am so proud of you." It was like, oh my God. It was that, I think, of all the things, that was just, went right in and slayed me. And I had held it together all that day, and I just wept in the middle of this party. So I think that, to get validation from your teenage boys at that was really something.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, well, I'm going to now ask Kennedy.
I don't know. I mean, I think one of the most recent things that was really special for me was Amazon featured Reel on their billboard in Madison Square Garden. And that was really special. And my husband and I, it was special on a lot of levels, but it was special because my husband and I hadn't had any time together in a long time, like alone. And my mom took my son for the weekend, and it was really our first time, being alone in like 18 months. And we went up to New York and we saw the billboard and we kissed in front of the billboard. And it's like one of my favorite photos of all time, just seeing my husband and I kissing in front of, my little book on a billboard. So in Madison Square Garden. So that was really, really special. That was a highlight for me. Recent highlight.
Yeah. Tessa?
Well, I will say that I have one that kind of pertains to someone in this group. Before I ever became an author, a published author, I read Jennifer Armentrout's books. And I was obsessed.
Never told me that.
Yes, I do. I have told you this. I have. I embarrassingly told you.
I can't say this. I don't know if people know this. So, Jeff, shut up.
So I read the Lux series, especially. That was probably my gateway drug to Jennifer Armentrout's books. And then I met her in New Orleans, at RT, and she asked me to go out for a cigarette with her. And I was like, really? I'm sorry if I just outed you. She doesn't smoke anymore. But that was so cool, and she was so down to earth and friendly and open with her knowledge of the industry. That's one thing about her. She'll just tell you any secret, any kind of method she has, she'll tell you, and she's an open book. So that was probably my first major highlight, was that one of my favorite authors wanted to talk to me.
Wanted to smoke with you.
Smoke with me. I didn't even smoke. I just pretended to.
Okay, that I did not know.
Standing there with a cigarette.
Now she's up to a pack a day.
Right.
All because of Jennifer.
Yeah.
Now I think it's BB. I'll go.
Oh my God, Tessa, you stole mine because I was going to talk about EL. She was mine. I got to see
Go for
her
it.
in the author suite at Book Bonanza, and we were in this little narrow hallway, and there were a ton of people in the room, and I was with my husband, and we were trying to like shimmy by. I think we were leaving, or she was leaving, we were coming, or something. And she somehow accidentally grazed my husband. My husband is I call him the husband. He does not like being touched, looked at in the eye, spoken to. So she's accidentally like grazed his ass, and he jumped, like hit the ceiling, and she played it off so well. She was like, "Oh, we objectify men here, didn't you know?"
That is perfect.
We ended up chatting, but she's so adorable, so cute. And so we went in the hallway, and I was like, did that just fucking happen? Like, she's my idol, and she just like molested you in the hallway. Like, I have made it.
I didn't mean to. Well, maybe I did. I don't remember.
It was adorable, but it was like, never in my life did I think
Please
I
don't
would
press charges.
but it was just so fun. It was just such like a sweet, cute moment. But in the hallway, I was just like, so what? Thank you for being here with your ass so I could have that moment. I appreciate it. It was like, what a crazy
Jennifer?
life. It was amazing.
Yeah. Jennifer?
I will say New Orleans RT was a trip I think a lot of us were there.
Yeah.
That was a fun RT. You know, I think, oh gosh, anytime another writer, you know, says that, you know, they've read your books, I feel like that's an awesome moment, because it's just, you know, it's a fellow peer, and that is just an amazing feeling. I think one of the things is you never know who is reading your books, and sometimes you find out. And either it's because an email goes to someone, or they randomly tag you, or someone sees it in their TikTok video or Instagram post, and you're like, holy shit, what? You're like, back up. And then you're like, oh God, I hope you don't hate it. But, you know, recently I was on, I can't talk a lot of details, but I was on the phone with somebody, and it was just one of those moments where I was like, how did I end up at this point right here where I'm having this conversation with this person like everything's normal? But you have those moments where you just, you know, you never know who is reading your book, and sometimes it's someone that, you know, you've watched, you know, on TV, or you read their books, or they're a singer or a model, and you're just like, holy crap. That, I think that's always one of those surreal moments where you're just like, this is weird.
Right. Well, we have like 2 minutes left, and while I'm going to thank the bookstores again, I want you to think about a book that, or an author, we did talk about an author you'd like to give a shout out to or recommend, or somebody that you, right on the heels of what Jennifer was saying, some author you really enjoy reading. But while I'm giving everyone a moment to have those thoughts, because I know, like me, there's like too many books and authors to almost list. But once again, many thanks to Joseph Beth, the Never Ending Bookstore, and Books and Books One for just helping us make this happen, along with Pamela Jaffe and some other folks from Source Books, and some of our other, well, just every author that's here and your publishers. Thank you very much. So before we run out of time, I'm going to start with Tessa. I just think it's appropriate that
I think if I could recommend one book that I read in the last year that really stuck with, 2 books actually from her that stuck with me. Kate Claiborne, she wrote, she wrote Love Lettering and Love at First. And they're just like some of the most beautiful, they're just beautiful, warm bath of a book. Like the hero and the heroine are just like so cerebral, and they're just drawing on each other's energies, and like, it's like, I don't know how to just describe it, except it's just a lovely glow the way she writes. And like Love Lettering is the first first in that series. And it's the heroine, she's a professional wedding invitation, like she does script and lettering for wedding invitations, and she hides a secret message in this guy's wedding invitation. And that's all I'm going to tell you. Like, because it's just so good and it just all comes back. So
Okay, then I'm going to go with Kennedy because literally it's 7 o'clock and I think we are out of time, but go for it.
I call Kate Claiborne Kate the Great, by the way, Tessa.
oh yes,
That impeccable of a storyteller. Real quick, the one I just finished that was like epic. It's 4 books. It's by TJ Klune, and it's the Green Creek series. It's Wolf Song, Raven Song, Heart Song, Brother Song. First of all, he's amazing. So that's the whole series. It's 4 books, which I just finished, and TJ Klune just can do no wrong. Story building, character development. But the other that is like one of my top reads of this year is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams, which is
a good one.
It's a Reese Witherspoon pick. It was just optioned for a TV series. I mean, it is amazing, and it surpasses all the hype. So if you're gonna grab a book, make it 7 Days in June.
Okay, BB.
I just reached behind me and grabbed it off my shelf. Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin came out last year, and I was in the biggest book funk. The world was crumbling around us. I could not disappear into a book. I couldn't turn the incessant news loop off. In this book, it's pirate romance. So the heroine is a pirate captain. It's historical. It's epic. It is a sweeping epic, but it's steamy as hell. It's the whole package. But it got me out of my book slump.
Excellent.
So, Sea of Ruin.
Jennifer.
Recently, I would have to say Sarah McLean's Bombshell.
Mm-hmm.
I love her historical romances, and I feel like because time it has no meaning. I feel like it's been a while since I read one of her new releases, and it honestly could have been a month. And I don't know. Yeah, but yeah, I love that book. Read it.
EL.
I'm going to give a shout out to Helena Hunting. I love her books. Her sports romance are hilarious and steamy, and she does some sweet and angsty stuff too. And I think she's wonderful.
Well, before I say, I'm going to add one more book for me that I just read by Farah Rochon called The Dating Playbook. And I loved it. Laugh out loud, funny, sexy as all get out. And ladies, oh my God, thank you. I think we have to stop. I know we have tons of more questions and things like that, but my understanding is we're just here for an hour. But just any last words from anyone, or just waving? Hold on, we're gonna wait for, don't leave right away, panelists. But I just wanna thank everyone for being here. This is bringing you all together. Such a fabulous idea for such a fun panel talking about really books that are loved, all worldwide loved. So that's very special. So very much thank you, thank you, thank you.
And thank you for being amazing.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for being such a great moderator, and thank you to everyone who's here.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.